Hi, so in this tutorial we're going to show you around the looping functionality on Traktor, and we'll also give you a look at the move panel, which is located underneath the decks as well in the advanced panels. So in terms of looping, I would generally use the auto loop functions, which you access through these buttons here. These buttons basically define the number of beats that you want to loop for. So you can loop up to 32 beats, or you can loop all the way down to 1/32 of a beat. So to activate these, we just press play. Let's set a 4-beat loop, just like that. You can change the loop length. And you can mess around with that to your heart's content. So that's pretty self-explanatory stuff. Nothing more to it than that, really. These buttons here allow us to set manual loop in and loop out points. So let's have a look. We'll release that loop. In, out, and we've set a manual loop there. And if you want to exit that, you can either press active or you can click out to release the loop. So that's essentially all there is to the looping aspects of it. But don't forget, you can obviously loop up to 4 decks at once, and if you've got your tracks perfectly beat grid, they'll all sync perfectly for you. But beneath here, underneath this downward arrow, is where we will find our move panel, and this is where things get interesting in terms of loops and beat jumping and that kind of thing. We've 4 different modes which we can access through this panel, all of which are move modes. So looking at the first one, beat jump, this allows us to jump a beat basically by a predefined number of beats. So what we'll do here, we'll press play. I've selected that I want to move the beat by 1 beat, and I use these buttons here to activate that. So I'm going to move it back. Again, you can go all the way up here. Let's see what happens when we move in 32 beats. So effectively, it's giving you more control. When you use this mode in conjunction with hotkeys, you can get really interesting. So the next mode that we have here is the loop mode. This is basically a loop jump mode. So if we set up a loop, set up a 4-beat loop there, we select that we want to move that loop by 8 beats. When I click here, it's going to move that entire loop 8 beats forward. Or let's move it 32, see what happens. Again, you can get as creative as you want with this. Let's shorten the loop or move it. Again, so it's another thing where you're effectively remixing on the fly there. So loads of fun to be had with that option as well. So that's the loop. Loop in, then this basically allows us to change the loop in point of our loop. So let's see how this works. Again, we will select that we want to change the loop in point by 1 beat. So we'll set up a 4-beat loop. Now watch the loop in marker, which is this green one at the front. Now you can see it moving closer towards the loop out marker. And if I click back, it brings it back to a 4-beat loop. So again, that's really handy in terms of being able to create different rhythms within your loops. Loop out does exactly the same, except it obviously moves the loop out marker. So let's have a look at this. Set our loop. Going to move it by 1 beat. So you can create a whole new rhythm out of that, you know. So they're effectively the 4 modes that you have there in your move panel. Mess around with them. The best thing, as I said, as we keep harping on about, is to get your tracks beat gridded so that when you're syncing these things up, they'll work seamlessly for you. And don't forget, you need to have this quantize feature enabled up here at the very top. So that's looping on your move panel. In the next tutorial, we're going to have a look at the effects in Traktor.